America is a land of triumphs, but also of spectacular failures. We are taught to celebrate the wins, but the losses tell a deeper story. From the deserts of Iran to the launch pads of Florida, some missions were doomed before they even began. Today, we dive into the darkest mission failed moments in U.S. history. Buckle up, because these stories aren't just about mistakes, they're about the high cost of ambition. Let's get into it. April 1980. The Iran hostage crisis. A daring rescue mission called Eagle Claw was launched. It was supposed to be a masterpiece of special ops. Instead, it became a nightmare. Severe sandstorms and mechanical failures led to a tragic collision at the Desert One staging area. 8 servicemen died, and 0 hostages were rescued. It was a humiliating mission failed that forced the U.S. to completely overhaul its Special Operations Command. Then there is the final frontier. NASA's Challenger in 1986 and Columbia in 2003. These were not just technical glitches, they were systemic management failures. 14 lives were lost across both missions, broadcast live to the world. Mission failed took on a visceral, heartbreaking meaning. It reminded a nation that progress often demands a heavy price. When the shuttles were lost, the dream of easy space travel was grounded for years. April 1961. The Bay of Pigs invasion. A CIA-backed plan to overthrow Fidel Castro using Cuban exiles. The result? A total debacle. Within just 3 days, the invading force was defeated. Poor logistics, a lack of air support, and a complete failure to spark a local uprising made this one of the most famous intelligence failures in history. It pushed Cuba closer to the Soviet Union and led directly to the missile crisis. If we go back a few years before each disaster, we see a pattern. History has a habit of repeating itself when political pressure outweighs ground reality. We saw a similar lack of coordination in the early 1960s in Vietnam, where intelligence was often ignored to maintain a public image of success. The same mistakes, poor communication, and overconfidence, just on different soil. The lessons of the past are often the hardest to learn. But why does this keep happening? Is it a failure of leadership, or simply a case of a superpower biting off more than it can chew? Sometimes the biggest giant has the most obvious blind spots, and the consequences are always measured in lives and billions of dollars. April 1975. The images of helicopters, evacuation people from rooftops in Saigon, marked the end of an era. After over a decade of war and 58,000 American lives lost, the mission to secure South Vietnam officially failed. It was the moment the public realized their military machine was not invincible. The evacuation was chaotic, the images were haunting, and the defeat was absolute. A superpower was forced to leave the stage in silence. Not all failed missions are military. Look at 2008 and the subprime mortgage collapse. The financial system of the world's most powerful economy crumbled. The mission for a stable, homeownership-based economy failed, leaving millions homeless and jobless. This was an internal mission failed that cost the world trillions. It shattered the public's trust in the American dream and revealed a system built on greed and oversight failures. The most recent example is August 2021, Kabul. The scenes at the airport mirrored the chaos of Saigon. 20 years of conflict, over $2 trillion spent. And the Taliban took control in just a few days as the U.S. withdrew. This is perhaps the ultimate modern mission failed. Despite 2 decades of nation building, the entire structure collapsed in a single weekend, leaving the world wondering what it was all for. Every mission failed in history was once seen as an ending, but in reality, it was never the end. It was a shift. From war to economy, from space to politics, each failure built the foundation for the next system. And as the world entered the 2020s, the nature of failure changed again. It was no longer just about missions on the ground, but systems controlling everything. And the next wave of failures was already beginning to unfold. By early 2025, the AI gold rush faced its first major reality check. Billions were poured into autonomous systems that promised to replace entire industries. But when the high costs and energy demands hit a wall, the bubble burst. Silicon Valley saw a massive mission failed as dozens of high-profile startups collapsed overnight. It was a stark reminder that even the most advanced tech can't escape the basic laws of economics. In mid-2025, a major U.S.-led initiative to establish permanent resource outposts in the Arctic faced a brutal defeat. Severe weather conditions and unforeseen logistical gaps forced a total evacuation of the bases. The mission to secure new energy frontiers was halted, leaving behind millions in equipment. Nature, it seems, won this round, marking a significant strategic mission failed for northern expansion. And looking at where we are now in 2026, the struggle continues. Just months ago, a massive failure in the national digital infrastructure led to a 48-hour total gridlock. The mission to create an unhackable centralized system backfired when a single point of failure took down essential services. It proved that in the modern age, a mission failed doesn't need a battlefield. It only needs a few lines of broken code. 2025 was also supposed to be the year of mass space tourism. However, after a series of failed engine tests and safety violations, the dream was postponed indefinitely. The mission to make the stars accessible to everyone hit a regulatory and technical wall, while the ambition remains high. The mission-failed screen is currently blinking for the commercial space sector as they head back to the drawing board. By mid-2026, the world wasn't collapsing, it was fragmenting. After years of repeated system failures, nations stopped aiming for full recovery and started focusing on isolated stability. Some regions rebuilt faster digital systems, others returned to manual infrastructure. Instead of global coordination, a patchwork of independent systems emerged. The idea of a fully connected world began to fade, replaced by controlled isolation. As AI systems became essential for daily infrastructure, a new problem emerged: dependency. Entire sectors relied on automated decision-making with no human fallback. When models failed or conflicted, humans no longer had the capacity to fully take control. In 2026, the first large-scale manual override gaps appeared, moments where no one knew how to fix what the machines were running. Truth itself became unstable. With AI-generated data, deepfakes, and corrupted archives spreading across networks, verifying information turned into a full-time system. Governments struggled to maintain official records, while public trust in digital information hit historic lows. In some regions, people began relying only on local offline sources, disconnecting from global feeds entirely. Late 2026 saw the most dangerous phase yet: synchronization failures between critical global systems. Finance, communication, and logistics networks began entering partial lock states, where systems were running but unable to properly interact. The world wasn't offline, it was desynchronized. By the end of 2026, the term mission failed no longer referred to one event. It became a description of the era itself. A world still functioning, but no longer unified. Not an apocalypse, but a permanent state of instability. And for the first time in history, failure was no longer an exception. It was the operating system. Looking back, it was never about single missions failing. It was about systems becoming too complex to control. Each decade added more layers, more dependencies, more risk. By 2026, failure was no longer an event, but a condition. The world didn't collapse, it fragmented. Everything still works, but nothing fully connects. No final moment, no explosion, just a slow drift into instability. And in every system log, the same message remains: mission failed.